What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to walk you through my latest guitar build. This is arguably one of the nicest ones I've built to date. Every single guitar starts the same way. I'm getting the top jointed together right here. Basically just means planing down the edge of the book match so that's perfectly straight, so that when I flip them together, there's no light coming through, no gaps, nothing, and it's going to look like one solid piece of wood. Right here I'm getting the glue laid down. I've got my clamps laid out ahead of time, and because of the thickness of the top, I'm able to let friction and gravity do most of the work holding these together. And right here we're about to get some really satisfying squeeze out. You ready? Bam. Look at that beautiful top. This is a piece of Zircote. Someone correct me. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but I saw the wood before I knew what I was going to build with it. And the end result of this thing is absolutely gorgeous, especially once we have it all glossed up under some lacquer. Man, it's a really nice guitar. I'm kind of sad that I'm going to have to sell this one. So I clamped it up, let it dry overnight, and I came back the next day and I threw it through the drum sander a couple times. This is just going to get it flattened out and remove any extra glue squeeze out. So I've got this slab of black Limba, and I'm pretty sure I can get two necks out of this thing. So I cut out my neck template, and it's got the extra extended heel because it's going to be set. And I'm just going to see if I can get a quick outline, and if I can, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over the bandsaw and just kind of rough cut the two, figure out the center points of the blocks and the neck and stuff, and we'll get all the, cavities and what am I talking about? We're gonna get the truss rod installed. Should be good. So I'm gonna flip this over. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut basically right in between here, so I don't have to, CNC it off and lose a lot of material. But yeah. So right here, I'm just ripping between the two outlines I drew out. This is gonna save a ton of material because the kerf of the bandsaw blade is significantly less than the router bit would have been on the CNC. Now I've got everything lined up. Right here you can see the outline getting done. The truss rod and the carbon fiber slots have already been cut. And I know I'm going to get a ton of hate for doing this on the CNC, but it's so much more accurate. It takes a whole different level of skill just to get everything programmed correctly. And I've done enough necks by hand that I know I can do it both ways. My CNC bit was not long enough to cut through the whole blank, so I brought it back over to the bandsaw and just kind of trimmed off the excess. And then I'm going to take it over to the router table and just use a pattern bit to kind of clean up those edges. Now that the neck's all prepped, back over to the CNC to do the fretboard. We got the radius down. Cavities for the inlays. Lately I've been doing these ovals. I really like the look of them. They're kind of classy, they're kind of modern. I just think they're cool. So now we're getting the neck and the fretboard glued up. As you can see, I've masked off the truss rod just to minimize any squeeze out from getting into that cavity. The truss rod's wrapped, so I'm not too worried if a little bit gets in there. It's not really going to affect it in any way, but the cleaner the better. Now I apologize for the black border on these shots. I was using my iPhone and I didn't get landscape for this, but it's a pretty important part of the build, so I figured I'd show it anyways. Right here you can see I have two little holes drilled out in the fretboard, and it goes into the neck, and I'm using those drill bits as an indexing pin just to make sure everything gets lined up during the glue up and won't move around while I'm clamping it. Now, I have a question for all my other woodworkers and luthiers. What is the correct number of clamps for a project? Because every time I seem to clamp something up, I could always use one or two more. And I think it's kind of like, how many guitars is enough guitars? I think the answer is X plus 1. There's always room for one more. But just let me know what you think in the comments. So while that's drying, back over to the CNC. Right here, I'm getting the top cut out. For this, I like to use a 2D contour toolpath. I think it's the easiest way to one-shot the outline of the guitar and get the pickups done, as well as the controls and the F-holes. This is probably one of my favorite features of the top. I think it just makes things a little bit more classy. Now that the top's done, I have the main body getting cut out. Again, same thing with the contour, but used 3D toolpaths to do the chambers and the neck pocket because it's angled. And once that was done, you can see I already went ahead and used some shielding paint in the cavities just so that when I glue it all up, I don't have to worry about that later. I also went ahead and sealed that second chamber with a little bit of shellac. It's just another thing to help prevent humidity and moisture from getting into the wood in the future. Gonna go ahead and spread all the glue out with my finger. And man, once that glue is poured out, clock starts ticking. From here, I just want everything to go nice and smooth because you really can't stop. I realized I could use the anchors from the bridge as indexing pins for the top again. And you can see there's already the binding ledge cut into this. I will have to go back and clean it up with the router, but this just saves me, a little bit of time. So again, how many clamps is too many clamps? And we're back to the neck. Just a little dab of super glue in that slot. Gonna pop that inlay right back in. And because we got that CNC precision, everything fits perfectly with no gaps. So what do you guys think of the ovals? Personally, I like them a lot. What would you like to see on a future build? Also, shout out to the shop kitty hanging out with me. So once those inlays are installed, I go back with the radius block to get everything leveled with the fretboard. And I take this time to go up to 2000 grit sandpaper. It gets the fretboard super smooth and shiny. And I couldn't help myself here. I had to give it a test fit. And you'll see in a second, it's pretty damn good. Watch this. Look, Ma, no glue. So I realized I forgot to film the binding process, but it's super straightforward. Once that binding channel is cut, you just install the binding strips with super glue and use tape to hold everything in place. For this build, I did a 4-ply. It goes black, cream, black, cream. And now that everything's installed, we got more sanding. I swear, 99% of my guitar builds are sanding. And at this point, I really do wish I could just hire someone to do this for me because it is mind-numbing work. Today I'm gonna get the frets installed on the neck. And I personally like to do this before doing any of the carving just because you have a nice flat back and I don't have to worry about setting up calls or anything when I put it on the fret press. And then, I'm sure someone out there is going to have a problem with the way I do this, but it works for me and it makes the process easy, so let's do it. I'm using a medium jumbo fret wire on this build. These are going to be nickel silver frets. I do stainless steel on request. It just really eats up my tools, and I don't think it makes enough of a difference in the longevity of the instrument to be worth it. But if that is your preference, I am totally happy to do it. Now, I come back and I bevel each fret slot with my 3-corner file, and it just helps guide the fret into each respective slot without it slipping around. And if you've been paying attention, I'm wearing a winter jacket because it is freezing in my shop in the winter, and I believe I was doing this in January. So I go through and nip off the tang of each fret This way, the edges of the fretboard have no visible tang and it's a smoother playing surface. Once that's done, you come back, file off the excess, and then I can go ahead and put a little super glue in each slot, and I use a fret press to get everything seated perfectly. Once those are installed, I come back with my Dusenberg fret cutters and cut the overhangs of all the frets off. I really like these tools. They're a little expensive, but they have a lifetime warranty, and I think they're really well made. Again, Dusenberg fret file. This thing is awesome for getting a bevel on all the frets. Back to the bandsaw. Right here, I'm cutting the neck down to its final depth. I leave a little extra material, obviously, so that I can get it perfectly flat. This way, when I go ahead and carve the neck's contour, I don't have to worry about the depth. I can just carve the edges to that center line, and I just leave that little bit of material so that I can sand it at the end and everything is perfectly smooth and that my necklines are perfectly straight. If you've liked watching this video so far, please consider giving a like, subscribe, comment, tell me what you want to see as far as content goes. This is the second video I've posted to this channel, and I do want to do more of them. They just take a bit of time to put together. This is another one of my favorite tools. This is the Shinto Saw Rasp. This thing removes material like nothing else. The blades are pretty sharp, not gonna lie. I probably should have been wearing a glove on one hand, but I love using this tool to rough out the neck shapes. And the way I do it is I have my center line and I mark another line on the side of the neck, and I cut a straight plane from one end of the neck to the other. And then I keep doing that from each plane until I have my contoured shape. That was a pretty terrible explanation, but there's so many YouTube videos on how to cut a neck using this method. And I suggest you go check them out if this is something you're interested in doing. Right here, I'm coming back with my chisels, and I'm just carving out the heel transition to where the neck is gonna meet the body. I find this part super, super satisfying, and I do look forward to it every build. This is the part of the build where everything begins to feel real. I'm using Total Boat's epoxy resin to pore fill and stabilize the top. The best part of this is seeing the grain come alive, all the colors become more vibrant, and it's just such an exciting part of the build. Now, the companies that I've mentioned, none of them endorse this. I just think they're really great products, and I think if you're going to get into guitar building, they're a great place to start. There's, tons of companies out there who are catering to this kind of stuff. There's tons of epoxy brands. This is just one of those situations where it's tried and true for me. There's plenty of other guys out there using these same methods, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Once this is all laid out, I'm going to go back and wipe off the excess epoxy with a damp rag. And that's just going to make sure that there's material in the pores, but not a ton of material on the surface. That's going to create more sanding for me when I go to the leveling phase. That first coat of epoxy is all dry. It's looking like a real guitar here. I went ahead and I did the back as well. All right, so I taped off the joint on the neck and the body so I can kind of control the squeeze out a little bit. Make my life a little easier once everything is glued together, and I gotta throw some finish on here. And I got sealer coat one down, sanded back, and I'm gonna do the second sealer coat, and maybe I'll do a third. We'll see how I'm feeling. But I want to do it after the neck is set in place so that all the seams around the joints are finished more evenly and that there's not like any like gaps left over at the end of the whole thing. So here we go. Now it's pretty important to have good glue coverage on this, because once the neck is set and everything is dried, there's going to be a ton of tension pulling against it when there's strings on it, and the last thing I want is for this neck to implode. So I got my caul, same radius as the fretboard. This guy has already been sized. I'm just going to slip it down here. And I've got the, got the mold of the guitar underneath it, just so I'm not clamping directly onto the wood. Now it's time to come back with my headstock template and a drill, just getting the tuner holes done. I go like 90% of the way through until the very tip of the Forstner bit kind of pokes through the back, and then I finish off the holes from the backside. This just prevents tear out. Last thing I want at this stage in the build is to be like gluing in chunks of torn out wood, and trust me, I've had it happen in the past and it is no fun. Here's the water slide decal before, after. Looks pretty sick. First coat of lacquer down. She's starting to get shiny, baby. And just wait till you see the back of this thing. You got some figuring, you got some streaks. It's so pretty. At this point in the build, I've got about 12 or 15 coats of lacquer on here, and this is where the level sanding starts. Now this step is super, super important, and you need to go slow and you need to work through the grits, and there's really no shortcuts. Lately, I've been using the Super Acrylic sanding abrasives. It's a sanding mesh. It leaves minimum scratch marks, which just makes my life easier as I'm going up from 600, 800, 12, 16, 2000, all the way up to the buffing. And I think it just leaves an immaculate finish. It's so much better than wet sanding. It's way less messy. And I really love the results that you get from it. So while I was doing this, I decided to stop at about 1200 grit on the neck, the back, and the sides. What this does is leave a super smooth satin sheen, especially on that neck surface where you want it to feel smooth and almost wood-like. You don't want that sticky high gloss lacquer that slows down your hand when you're playing and leaves fingerprints everywhere. I did go up to a super high gloss on the top, and I think the contrast between the top and the neck and the back and the sides is super nice. Once that's all done, it's time to install the hardware. I've got Gotoh 510 locking tuners on this. They are the smoothest tuner by far. I recommend them on every single guitar you own. The electronics on this guy are pretty straightforward. I got master tone, master volume. It's got a set of P90s in there from Righteous Sound pickups out of Texas. They're the King Street model, and I had them sitting around from a previous build that they just never made it into, but they felt like the perfect fit for this build. All right, we're pretty much at the end, and I got everything wired up, all put together. Gonna throw a set of strings on it and see how she sounds. I still have to go ahead and shield out the cavities, and I need to, what else did I just say? I need to make the back control plates for it still, but you know, finish line, final stretch. We're gonna get everything kind of tweaked out from here, and you know, hopefully it sounds as good as it looks, because damn, this thing's pretty. I'm doing the final setup of this with a pack of Stringjoy 10 gauge strings. Stringjoys, they sound great, they feel great, and best of all, they're a Nashville company, and I love supporting local businesses. I should also mention, this guitar is going to be up for sale. I have it listed on my website now, and it ships with a hard case. I ship anywhere in the US. I will ship internationally. You just got to cover shipping. But yeah, man, this thing sounds phenomenal, and it feels great, and it would love to go to a home where it gets played every day. As much as it's a beautiful piece of art, I want these to be player guitars. If you've made it this far in the video, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'd like to ask for your support in the simplest way possible. Please like, subscribe, comment on this video. Go follow me at Lambkin Guitars on Instagram and Facebook. Feel free to check out my website, lambkinguitars.com. I've got a portfolio of my previous builds. I've got this guy listed, obviously up for sale, and everything that's going to come down the line in the future will be on that website as well. I post most often on Instagram and Facebook a lot of short clips of tutorials on how to do some wiring, how to do mods, random weird projects I've got in the shop. And if you're in the Nashville area, I offer repair, tech, modification services. So feel free to shoot me a message if you want to come by and check out what I've got. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.